Welcome to episode 7 of a series that we've been doing, Event Pros Preparing Today for Tomorrow. My name is Angela Contardi. I'm the founder of UeventPro.com, and I am so pleased that today we have Jocelyn Davison with us. Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi, Angela. How are you?
I'm well. Jocelyn is from The Virtual Effect, and you're the giver. It's like the giving tree. You just keep giving and finding ways to give and give and give, even in these times. So I just thank you so much for giving your time and your expertise and sharing with us today. And I am just excited to have you here. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh, thanks so much. So tell us a little bit about your story, Jocelyn, and what is the virtual effect?
Okay, so story, like most of ours, is a long, winding, not a linear path at all. And I came into my business, I started it about, we're coming up on 3 years now. Sorry, as I was doing the math, I had that realization. I've been so in the mode of saying like around the 2-year mark, but we're coming up on 3. I started it about 3 years ago, and it was started on the side. I was working in corporate and in a completely different career path than what I had gone to school for and what my passions were. But as life happens and we climb the corporate ladder, our titles grow and our salaries grow and things are wonderful. And I found myself in a place where, while I had a great job for all intents and purposes, my heart was not full. I knew that I was capable of more, and I knew that I needed to be in a career path that fulfilled me and that was just more in alignment with me and my values. And so that's when I started The Virtual Effect. And what we are, we're an impact event planning company based out of here in Edmonton. And what is at my heart, what my love is working with other businesses and business owners that are heart-centered and really bringing to life events with a purpose. That's where my heart is. I love to be able to do that and gift that experience.
So when you say events with a purpose, this is like one of the very first questions that I would ask anyone when they're having an event is say, why are you doing this?
Yes.
Like, why, the giant why, and what are you trying to achieve? So is that what you mean when you say events with a purpose, or is there a little more to it?
There's a little more to it. And I completely agree that that should be always the first question, because we need to know why. Why do our clients want these events and what are their intentions and goals with it? But I go a little deeper with that. And what I mean by events with a purpose is, now let me preface this by saying there is nothing wrong with a good party just for the sake of having fun. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with
Absolutely.
What I thrive on are those events that have a higher purpose. So are we educating on a significant issue? Are we raising money for a cause or an organization? Are we really working on building community, giving back, and creating a space for people to come together and feel as though they belong and have a space to connect? So that's what I mean when I say events with a purpose.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, it's the giving tree. It's the way that how is this event contributing to our community in a deeper way?
100%. That's what I'm all about. That is where I just love that, and that's where my soul and my heart are. So that's the path and like that little niche that I've really followed, because that's where I feel so in alignment with my purpose and where I really excel.
Yeah, and so you were talking a lot earlier about your values. Like that was really core for you. That's what really pushed you over the edge into the land of entrepreneurship and having your own business and really pursuing this So your why is value based, obviously, but what else is your why? Like, where is that really pulling from?
I think now, as cliche as this might sound, it was, I had that realization one day of when I'm 90, and I say 90 specifically because my grandfather, that was the age when he passed away. He was 91. And we always have these conversations, and to watch him reflect on his life was such a gift.
Hmm.
And it was one of those things that stopped me. And I thought, when I'm 90 or 91, if I'm, lucky enough to hit that age, will I look back and be proud? Will I have stepped into the life that I was meant to live? And the answer was, at that time when I asked myself, it was no. And I knew I was capable of so much more. I didn't know what that more was, and I could never have dreamed that I would have stepped into the life that I'm living now. And it's hard work, but it's so worth it. But it was in that moment that I knew I was out of alignment with my values. And it's amazing how, when we're not living within our values, the effects that it has on us in all areas of our life, our physical health, our mental health, our ability to have quality, strong relationships, like all of that begins to get affected. And so I noticed such a transformation when I finally stepped into what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's how I know I'm there, is because I've never on all those levels been in a healthier, better spot.
Yeah, it's just really living your life on purpose means making that choice. And there is an alignment when you're really, really living your life on purpose and you're really moving into this stream that you're meant to be on. And that means like your talents, your abilities, your training, your values, all of it kind of comes together and it collides into this perfect chasm, or if you will, and it's just like boom, there you are. And you can truly live from that place. One of my favorite people, Oprah, she talks about, it's just like it's a flow, it's just like natural. And the first time I heard her say that, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's natural flow. But the more I thought about that, it's like, yeah, because it just fits.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
fits.
Yeah, you've stated it perfectly and beautifully. And it just fits. And it's not to say that every day is perfect and easy
Yeah.
and wonderful, because regardless, we're all going to face challenges. But when you're in and living on purpose, it's pretty incredible how those things and pieces that we used to attach so much importance to no longer matter anywhere near the same way, like
Yeah.
the title and the salary and all of those things. Like it's a full mindset shift. And
Yeah.
just the things that matter really do come to the surface, like the things that like matter at our core and not just
Yeah.
superficially.
Yeah, absolutely. And so right now there's a lot of our peers in the event industry, they feel this. And it's been interesting as I had conversations with a lot of the people in our industry. There was one thing, well, several things that really stuck out for me, but one in particular was, this isn't just what we do, it's an expression of who we are. And that's exactly what I'm hearing from you, is this isn't just, a job to you in a way to make some income. It truly is an extension of who you are. So when you're looking at some of the challenges that you're facing right now, and it's like thinking of that, this is where it's kind of like rubber hits the road now for a lot of people, because it's like, now, but this is what I meant to do, and how do I do that? And like, so how can I live this out, this me that I feel that I need to live, and still, I still got to live. I still got to make a business happen. So what's been working for you in this? Like, how have you made some shifts in your world?
Yes. Well, first, let me acknowledge what so many in our industry and beyond are experiencing. I mean, it still shocks me, and I don't know, yeah, shocks me, I guess is the best word, how we have so many people globally that are experiencing such a similar impact, and it's been hard. And what I have been doing up to this point, I've certainly made the transition and pivoted and moved some of my events to the online space. And to be honest, I have been really spending time and doing a lot of work on those back end and like strategic pieces and execution and those things that are always there that you're like, oh, I should do these things. But taking the time to really dive into it and do it right so that those systems are in place. So when we get back to our new normal, that, my goal is to have those so streamlined that that's just now an even stronger foundation for my business. So, it's obviously slower. I know we're all experiencing that. There's only so much that we can put online. So just, yeah, like I said, taking advantage to build a stronger foundation for my business that sometimes gets neglected when we are full tilt all the time with clients and events. So that's what I've been trying to do.
That's wise. That's really wise, because I think that when we're really able to take 2 steps back and really analyze, okay, what's worked, what hasn't, where could I maybe, tweak so that when it does get busy, that I'm able to just amplify what I'm providing people, the value that I'm really providing customers. But with that, I would also say that about tomorrow coming. Like, what do you foresee with this? Just from what you've experienced in the industry, sort of like what you're hearing out there. What's your take on it all?
I really believe that, well, first, I believe we're in for a slow, gradual recovery. I don't think there's any way around that. We're going to see those numbers slowly increasing of what we can see in terms of face-to-face events. And what I think in a significant way that we all need to be prepared for and aware of is that we're going to be seeing these hybrid events. So an event that is in person, but we are going to have to offer that online virtual component so that we can accommodate people at all different levels. Because I really feel even when we get the go ahead, whatever those numbers look like, we're going to have people in the general public within our industry anywhere that don't feel comfortable being in a public space.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. That's not for me to judge and for none of us to judge. We need to be able to, as the planners, to meet everyone where they're at and provide an incredible event experience, whether you're in person or online. And I mean, I think there's going to be a whole lot that we're going to have to get our heads wrapped around in terms of safety protocols. I mean, that's going to be a whole other thing. And, is physical distancing going to be a new standard? And what's that going to look like? And then how do we still create an experience, but keeping, like there's so many factors that I speculate on, I think on, but I mean, at the same time, I'm trying to live right here and be strategic, because you can spiral pretty quick in thinking about all the what ifs and potential things that could happen and that you'll have to, compensate and allocate for in planning events. So
absolutely. And that live streaming piece, I wholeheartedly agree with that. That's been something that, lots of people have been talking about, and I think that that's 100% accurate. And because you're going to have different people at different comfort levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. And you know what though, is when I look at it with another lens, is like, let's look at the possibility with that. And what I mean by that is like our geographic expansion potential. And as well, there's a lot of introverts in this world, or people that just feel more comfortable at home. And now if we make this hybrid event, we are allowing or we're opening up our potential audience so much wider
Mhm.
because we are allowing people to choose a way to interact and take part in an event that
Mhm.
feels comfortable and feels best for them. So
Yeah.
I think as many frustrations, there are some really incredible and exciting possibilities that we can look at with how this change will affect us.
Absolutely. And exactly, being able to meet people where they're at and where what feels right and what's comfortable for them. Like that's the critical piece, isn't that the whole point? And also, safety is always paramount. But
Yeah.
having this hybrid option where, let's say, for whatever reason, someone felt they couldn't participate in the event, and it could be even a logistical issue. Well,
Yeah.
now that's an option. And so, how we engage people in that audience in an event on a virtual level, that is also a huge opportunity because it doesn't have to just be, I'm just watching a video. It can be very interactive. So, finding creative ways to approach that will be interesting.
Yes. And I find that such an interesting part in taking part in all these online events is just seeing the different ways that the hosts are engaging the audience because of,
Mhm.
in person, it's, easy to engage and make sure that people are with you. But, when we're hosting a webinar and we can't see any faces projecting back at us, how can we be creative to make sure that they're paying attention and that they feel like they're an important part of that event and an important part of contributing to the experience of what we're all taking part in. So it is, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see what engagement options come out and how that continues to evolve.
Yes, absolutely. So, you had mentioned before that you're doing some online events.
Yes,
So
yes.
tell us a little bit about that. How have you continued to keep that engagement online, and what have some of the struggles, like some of the things where, okay, this is not a live event. It's traditionally been a live event. So now I'm trying to create the same kind of experience for people, but I'm doing it in a virtual way. So what's sort of been your experience, your learnings, and maybe some of the things that you've kind of found a workaround, and maybe areas that maybe you're still looking for opportunity?
You bet. So, well, with my business, with the Virtual Effect, I offer my own series of events, which are called Elevate. And so those are the events so far that I have taken online. And I'm going to be totally truthful and transparent. When we first hit the self-imposed quarantine and everything was shut down, I was very angry. I was upset and I was feeling stubborn. And I wanted to dig my heels in and say, no, I won't be doing online. We're going to get back to normal. So that, that didn't last long until I had a very serious talking to with myself.
Mhm.
And, this I had to give myself some trouble, but, the Elevate community that has been created, they have shown up for me and for each other and for our community partner for over 2 years. And I wasn't about to let them down because they've always been there for me. And so that's when I transitioned. We didn't skip a beat. March was our last in person, and then April we had our first online event. And
Excellent.
yeah, so it was really, it went so well. It exceeded all of my expectations, and it was so well received because people were missing it. They still wanted to be a part of that community. And another event that I just took online was Elevate Understanding Human Trafficking, and that was a panel style webinar and taking on the topic and educating on human trafficking. And so it talking about the geographic component of it and the ability that in that discussion we were able to pull in people from across Alberta and BC and Saskatchewan,
Wow.
and have people involved in that conversation and learning that couldn't potentially have been there before. And so that has been wonderful. And I've really done my best to, and I'm learning every single event that I do to bring in those engagement options and, make sure that I'm leveling that up for every experience. And I'm currently working on a client event. We're taking a fundraiser online at the end of May. So it's a whole other learning experience. And figuring out, again, going back to engagement, how to engage people when this, the original plan that we had for this event was high engagement, high ambiance, all of those components and pieces. So now figuring out at the touch points that we have control of, how can we still inject and curate that experience? And so it's a lot of thinking outside the box and trying to be creative. And the one thing that I have found is I can't do all of it on my own. And what I mean by that is when you're hosting, and I'm sure you've experienced this, when you're hosting online, you can't also be responsible for keeping up with all of the like behind the scenes technology of Zoom or whichever platform you're using. And I definitely learned that the hard way while I'm trying to respond to comments and get this person doing that. And then realize I'm the host and I'm supposed to be talking, but I'm, typing away, trying to be the admin behind the scenes. So
yeah,
that made a big difference. And again, everyone, it's like, okay, now refining that and learning the pieces that you need to bring that support in so that it can still run seamlessly.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of creative visual elements that you can add through these technologies. And I mean, there's so many different providers out there. Zoom is one, there's many others.
Yes.
So it's just getting very familiar with what does that landscape look like. And it's interesting because virtual events, you think, okay, I've got sight and I got sound. But when you're doing a live event and you're thinking, I am immersing people into a brand experience, whatever that is,
Yeah.
You're talking about all five senses.
Yes.
So I can't control the smell in your virtual space.
Nope.
So I can control the sight and but what about the taste? What about the touch? And so integrating all five senses into your event, even though it's virtual.
It's a challenge. And, I think another challenge, and I know I've been guilty of it, is we also have less control over the distractions within their environment. So, they can have the phone here that's popping, and then, as you probably saw, the child walking by in the background, or the pets jumping, or whatever that might be. We're competing against those types of distractions that we normally can minimize in a much more controlled way when we have them in person. So again, that goes back to the engagement, so that we're always pulling them back in and making sure, because the reality is their minds are going to wander off. That's going to happen. It happens in person or virtually, but making sure that we build that in throughout the event so that we are pulling them back into the experience.
Well, I think that you got to be real intentful. You got to be, it's the same framework as when you're planning the live event. It's just your level of intentfulness and your planning and your flow and all of those other elements that we would fully consider in a live event are just as important in a virtual event. And it's really easy for someone to go stop video.
Yes.
And you think that they're still engaged, and they've made themselves a sandwich and a big glass of milk, or whatever it is that they're having a beer. That might be okay for that. I don't know. But their engagement isn't there. Whereas if they were in that live event, they might pull out their phone and start flipping. Right, but they're still physically there, and they may not just leave.
Yes. Yeah, we hold them more accountable for their presence in person, obviously, because we can see them. But yeah, it's how do we still maintain that accountability online when we don't know if they've just paused us or stopped video so they can watch TV and muted us maybe, but it still looks like they're there and taking part.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all part of the learning. That's part of where the event planning expertise comes into play, where we can just really, learn as we grow and make those differences for those events that we're doing. So yeah, I love that. And just continuing to pivot quickly and continuing to be there for your community and for your customers in this space. So moving forward, if you were looking at some major changes in how you're going to do things, or different elements that you're maybe looking at integrating into your business, what does that look like for you?
Oh, that is a great question, Angela. And I still struggle with that. Like, to be perfectly honest, I still struggle because there's that part of me that still really wants to hold on to how it was. But I know for me, I absolutely am going to have to level up in terms of my technology. And what I mean is how to integrate that when we do go back to in person, and making both match. Because it's you're not just planning one event. Like, you can't just take what you have for in person and make it online. Like, there are differences. So
Yeah.
I think really giving a lot of thought to what that new process is going to look like, and just understanding what that's going to require of me and of the people that work with me, because it's going to be a different experience again, and we're going to be adjusting to that again. So I think in terms of technology, that's going to be a big part where I know that I'm going to need to do some work. And then considering, what's that going to do to the client budget in terms of being able to accommodate that. And
Yeah.
not only for what my, putting forth my proposal, but to have the appropriate technology to be able to produce an event online and in person that is of equal quality. So I think there's some things to consider there. And, if nothing else, I mean, this whole experience has really got me thinking about the importance of diversity in our revenue streams. And it's something that I'm still working on and figuring out how I can diversify that so that we're not so reliant on this one avenue only. And I know, we've had this conversation about business 101, like, we need those multiple income streams, but here I am with limited in that sense. So that's another thing that I really need to work through and dig in on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really understanding, okay, what is my business model? How does my business model work? How did it work before? And what's my new environment? And how can I make my business model work for this environment? And even if I could anticipate the next 3 steps just a bit, that's also going to position people with their businesses in a very different way than they have been positioned in the past. Because I think that this is a new landscape, and I don't think it's changing. This is a new, like, we're going to have more events. I think events will be back, but what that looks like and all of the particulars around that, we don't know for sure, but that's going to be where we maybe have that anticipation and just kind of be 2 steps ahead maybe, hey?
Totally. And I think another important consideration, and one that if again, being totally transparent and honest, one of the parts I think that's been causing me to struggle so much with really, looking down that road and figuring that out is, how do I take what I feel is such a critical component of my brand, which is that personal connection, and being able to create that and being able to relay who I am. How can I bring that into this new landscape effectively so that I'm not losing what I feel makes me who I am and makes the virtual effect like who we are? And so that's a hard piece for me to get my head around and really figure out how to bridge that and bring it together. So that's something that I've been spending a lot of time on figuring out is how that part's going to, how I'm going to make that happen.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that just as you discovered with that first event you did, when you did that quick pivot and, well, we're going to just keep on going and we're going to do a virtual event. Um, you learned it so much from that one experience. And then the next one that you did it little bit different. And so it's like one step at a time.
Right.
That's the only way to eat an elephant or whatever.
Yeah.
It's one step, one bite at a time, one step at a time. And that's just the way we can kind of find our way.
Yes.
But I think sometimes I find it really interesting at the beginning you were talking about just really streamlining your processes and understanding like that part of it too, because you're tuned in to really understand as well that you have to do an event that's a virtual and a live. You're really doing two different events in one, and this isn't just an extension, it's two separate things. And so by really, really understanding that and then having that streamlined approach and really understanding that part of it, it does shift your business model. It does open up opportunities for you on what it exactly is that you're offering customers and the insights that you're truly able to offer.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that sets the playing field in a whole other way. Like that really opens up the opportunity because it's not just we're throwing a party.
Mm-hmm.
Throw out your invitations and book a place and you're good to go. There's a lot more to it. And I think that as people and organizations are starting to have events, there's a greater understanding, I think, maybe of that, or maybe an awareness. I don't know what I don't know.
Yes.
So there is opportunity in that as well.
Which is exciting, and that's what I really feel we need to focus on. And I mean, we're still going to have our bad days, but when we focus on the possibilities and get excited about that and get creative and bring in just some fresh ideas, like there's so much that we can do. And if we keep that mindset about it, I think that collectively how it will advance is going to be such a cool thing to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as you've been taking time for yourself, or I should ask, have you had opportunity to take time for yourself and reflect during this downtime, or what we call the downtime? But most of the people I talk to, oh, are you having a downtime? No, actually I'm busier than I've ever been before. What has this been like for you?
Well, I've certainly been busy, and I'm not a fan of the busy word. I really feel I've been intentional and productive with the use of my time. So that has looked a whole lot different than what I had anticipated, in terms of before this was going to be a very busy period prepping for all of these events. And so now that has changed, but I've certainly invested a lot of time, like I said, in those processes and really diving in on pieces of my business that over the past 2.5, 3 years, they've worked, but I know there's a lot of room for improvement. And I feel like I have been taking the time for myself, and what that looks like for me in terms of the reflection piece. I've been doing more journaling, because when I can start getting it out and acknowledging the things that I'm afraid of and those pieces that I'm maybe trying to avoid, it has made such a big difference in my ability to pivot when I can call out what I'm afraid of and what I'm trying to avoid and deal with it, and then moving on. And it's scary, but that's how we're going to take that next step forward. Like you said, like, what are those next 3 steps? Well, if I don't know what I'm even concerned about and trying to make better, how do I know what steps those are? So I've been taking that time and some family time and reading. I'm definitely more accomplished on my reading than I have been, because that fell by the wayside. So there's been some of those like great little things that have popped out of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as we wrap up, just wanted to ask you, what words of encouragement or advice, special thoughts would you have to other people in our industry that are maybe facing some challenges and just looking for what are their next steps? What would you say to them?
I think the best thing I could say, and what I've heard, is let's look at this situation with the eyes of what's possible. And when we look at it from what's possible, it puts us in that more positive mindset. It's not like, oh my goodness, what are my options? No, what are the possibilities that can come from this? And I have loved that mindset, and that's what I would share with others.
That's awesome. I totally love that. That's what it's about, right? Because tomorrow is coming. Like, I really do believe that, and just keeping that possibility mindset through that. Thank you so much for that, Jocelyn, and sharing your story and how you're working through this time as well. So thanks so much for being a part of this today.
Thank you for having me, Angela. It was my pleasure. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for sharing. That was just so insightful. What a deep conversation we ended up having. Living life on purpose, finding the opportunities in the struggles. Like, just an incredible conversation. Thanks so much for sharing and giving, Jocelyn. So we are going to continue on with our series, Event Pros, preparing today for tomorrow. So stay tuned, and we look forward to sharing this time with you again soon. Cheers.